then I might swerve, ayy. Double off deuce, ayy. That just might work, ayy. When I pull up on you, then I might swerve, ayy. Double off deuce, ayy. That just might work, ayy. That just might work.
Welcome back to another episode of the Michel Matters Podcast. I'm Jocks Michel.
And I'm Jackie Michelle.
Welcome back.
Hey, guys.
Another episode.
Yes.
I guess before we get started, how about we catch everybody up on what's been going on?
Yeah. So we are still in our interracial series.
Yes.
So that's what this episode is going to be about. But I guess the last 2 weeks we did go to dinner with a couple, Carl and Brittany, and they were on the podcast from episode 57. So we took them to the
ramen spot.
Yeah,
ramen. It's like a ramen spot.
Yeah.
And it's like a few times that I've had ramen, but it like changed my mind. This place changed my mind about ramen. Like I always thought about it like as oodles and noodles until about a month ago, maybe a little bit longer, maybe like almost 2 months ago now.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh no, they hooked this up a little different. So I took Jackie, and then we ended up taking them because we know they like ramen. So that was pretty cool.
They like Asian food.
Yeah.
So they've been having us, or they've invited us to have sushi like so many times. So I guess that'll be the next spot we go with them. But yeah, that was cool. I do like that place, and I like the chicken bun that they have, but I call it chicken butt because
you're a child.
It's funny.
So yeah. And aside from that, we did drop the episode or the vlog episode.
Yeah.
So you can definitely go ahead and check the YouTube for that.
Yes.
Yeah, Jackie did another good job with that one. I have nothing to do with the vlogs. I would prefer not to do any vlogs, but
it was the same kind of content from what was on Instagram. So whatever you missed, I just put it in a vlog.
Yeah.
Pretty much, and that was it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just a short day in the life vlog. One of these quarantine days that we decided to just document the day. And then what else? I have been gardening.
Yeah, you've been working your little green thumbs.
Yeah.
Outside. Just kind of trying stuff because you've been trying to grow stuff for a while.
Yeah.
Like if you know anything about me, I can't grow a thing. I killed.
Well, that's true.
Yeah. Jackie gave me one of the plants that's not supposed to die.
A succulent.
And I killed that. So
yeah.
That just gives you how green my thumb is.
Yeah. And that's probably my fault because I gave you 3 at the same time. I should have just gave you 1, even though you asked for more.
No, I had 2.
Two.
Yeah. I had 2, but
I should have just gave you 1.
Jackie gave me instructions. I know I followed the instructions.
No, I don't think so.
And hey, man.
So why do we still have succulents in this house that are just fine?
Because you probably gave yourself better directions.
No.
I should have read the paper myself, but I listened to you, and now I had 2 dead succulents. I threw them both out because they was just like turning to dirt. But
yeah.
Yeah.
What else?
But yeah, aside from that, oh man, it's been a lot of I guess it's quarantine. It's a lot of downtime, catching up on old TV shows. And some new movies, but mostly old TV shows.
Yeah.
If you know, on Netflix, they brought back a couple things like Moesha, The Game, and Jackie's been going crazy watching all of them.
Yeah, I already finished the 3 seasons of The Game on Netflix. Moesha is still there. That's just going to be a long-lasting thing for me. But yeah, so now I'm like, man, that's kind of where I stopped in college watching The Game. So I already knew that part. I don't know season 4 and on what happened because it started getting trashed, but I don't know how I'm going to watch it. So.
I think it's on BET or something, so you might be able to pull it up on On Demand.
BET On Demand?
Yeah. Yeah, check it out.
Okay.
And
we watched Fatal Affair.
Yes. And it had bad reviews going into it, so we kind of knew what we were getting ourselves into.
You said you saw mixed reviews.
I did see mixed reviews.
So it gave me some hope, but I had only seen bad reviews on YouTube.
Yeah, and what do you think? Did they earn the bad reviews?
Yes.
It was pretty bad. I'm not gonna lie. It was pretty bad.
I think the casting too was what are we doing? Like, this is their daughter?
I had to double check that it wasn't a Tyler Perry movie. Granted, I have a lot of respect for Tyler Perry. I just had to double check that it wasn't a Tyler Perry movie.
Yeah.
So congrats to Tyler Perry for not creating that.
Well, Nia Long apparently was like a producer or something like that. It was like her first directing
I can see
credit.
that. It showed. But yeah.
So that was interesting.
And I watched Project Power. Jackie fell asleep, of course.
I watched like the first 30 minutes.
Yeah, I thought it was good.
It was good. I thought it was just
really
late.
Good.
We started late.
So yeah, I definitely like that.
Yeah.
So eventually you should probably watch it.
I will.
So, I mean, that was pretty much it. I guess going forward, we'll lean into the race series. I don't know why I was struggling just now. My goodness, that was difficult. But yeah, so let's head into the episode.
Well, before that, we do have a comment from
So why you letting me just ramble?
Because I didn't know what you was about to say. We do have a comment from Instagram, and this is from Tiffany, and this is from episode 64, where we talked about if men and women can actually be friends for real. Mm-hmm. And so she says, I enjoyed how y'all unpacked the question. I love how Jocks made the point of how lines can get blurry if you become too good of a friend. That's so true, and one of the cautions of befriending the opposite sex. I think it's possible to be friends with the opposite sex if there are clear boundaries and respect for one another. I also loved how you asked him if it's okay to have blurry friendships as a single person. My dog said no. I also agree that not all of those people are friends, and some of them truly are potentials. I was just giving a friend of mine advice the other day because she keeps making friendships with these guys that she calls friends when they are really potentials, because when it doesn't work out and she moves on to a new friend, they get jealous. I was telling her that sometimes you meet someone and you get to know them and it does not work out, and it's okay. Not every person is meant to be a friend, because when the right one comes along, you have a graveyard of friends, aka potentials, that are like weeds that can come and choke out a good thing you have going. I was legit just in a conversation about this, so your podcast was so relevant and timely. So that was a great comment.
Shout out to the homie.
A lot of people had things to say actually on that episode. We just haven't really mentioned it on the podcast.
Yeah, it was a good one. So I definitely agree with what she said about the graveyard of friends and how they could choke out a good thing.
Yeah.
I definitely think that's possible. So that was a really good comment.
That is possible, for sure. Didn't let that happen over here, but it's possible.
It could have.
It could have.
But you know,
if I was like, this girl.
Why you had to say you? Why we couldn't just leave it real generic? Why it had to be me?
Because we're talking about us.
Okay.
But anyway.
Not fair.
As you guys know, you can subscribe and rate us on iTunes. Send us comments on SoundCloud or on the gram at Michel Matters and at Gmail. MichelMatters@gmail.com or Twitter.
You can always reach me on Twitter at Coach_JOX.
And if you want to support the podcast, you can do so by clicking the link below to our website and hitting the sponsor page.
Yes, sir.
So let's move on. This is a long episode.
All right, enjoy. All right, guys. So on this episode of the Michel Matters Podcast, we have the Harrisons.
Yes.
Jeff and Ty. Definitely excited to do this one. Jeff was our teacher. I can't even call him Jeff.
Yeah, it's weird.
I came into this like, I'm going to call him Jeff. But it's so hard. So Jeff was our teacher in high school. And
I would say one of like the best teachers we've had.
Oh, thank you so much.
And it's not just because it's okay. So to be honest, when I was in high school, I didn't like Jeff. And Mr. Harrison. I like Jeff. I didn't like Mr. Harrison. Is that fair? Okay.
It's definitely two different people. Yeah.
And I couldn't even I don't even have a real reason. I don't know. And now, to be honest, Jeff is one of my favorite people that doesn't even know he's one of my favorite people.
Right.
So, there's few people that I think I don't know. I know I'm not the smartest person, but like he thinks, like he's a critical thinker, and I look up to him. So,
Yes.
that's just
And then I didn't really get to know Ty until one day there was a game night, I think, at someone's house, and we just kind of fed off of each other, like tag teaming, getting the answers right. And I was like, oh, she actually knows things that I know, and like then we started nursery together, so got to know, which was nice. So this is the Harrisons. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
No problem.
And to stay on brand, they are interracial couple. If you can't tell, if you're listening,
Yeah.
No, you can't tell. Yeah.
when the YouTube comes out, it all makes sense.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, I kind of know, but just for everyone else's knowledge, how did you guys meet?
We met on eHarmony. Yeah. We tell people we met like antiquing and stuff like that, or running in the park. But yeah, it was eHarmony. Yep.
Wow. So how was that? Do you guys, I mean, I guess now there's Tinder and stuff where you have to like plug in your interests and swipe and all that, but eHarmony is more Christian based, right?
No.
I would at least say it's more like marriage minded. It's you know, like, where Tinder is about something else.
Right. Right.
I wouldn't know, but
So we've heard.
Yes, that's what they tell me.
Yeah.
I remember I was in high school, and then one of the things Mr. Jeff said, I'm gonna work on it throughout the interview, but he always mentioned like, and I never forgot it. He was like, if you're gonna get turned down by a 10. And I was like, good strategy.
Yeah.
Good strategy. And we both progressed in life. Look at us.
Feels bad getting turned down by a 10, but getting turned down by a 2 is so crushing.
And then we know obviously what you do, Jeff. What do you do, Ty, for work?
I am a project manager, so I collect data on children with disabilities.
Okay.
And provide that data to the states.
Nice. Okay.
Oh, okay. So I guess initially, were you all looking to be in a mixed relationship, or did it just happen? Because I think that's one of those you pointed at it.
He's the first guy I've ever dated, so I can't really say I was looking for a mixed relationship. That's just something that happened. I think for me with eHarmony, by the time, because I've moved around a lot, so I was in Philly and then in Orlando and now in Miami or South Florida, and each time I tried eHarmony, it was just terrible. And so this particular time in Miami, I decided to like change the filter and like open things up, saying, okay, God, whatever you have for me, I'm ready. If I need to move to Spain or move to Canada, if he's got children, if he's got one leg, whatever it is, I'm ready. Instead of minimizing, like through a small keyhole, instead of like just opening up the options. But he was kind of teasing me about that earlier this week when I mentioned that that's what I did. Yeah,
there's a one-legged Canadian 50-year-old white guy out there that's like, dang, I was that close.
Oh my gosh.
Well, that's like you saying you were that close to MC Light because she met someone online.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
And he's a huge MC Light fan.
In more ways than one. And she met her husband on Match.com. MC Light was out there just like
looking.
Yeah, filling out the profile on Match.com, and I'm out there over on eHarmony, like ships that pass in the night. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I guess it's also just like altering what you think you desire to more like, let me just see what God has for me and take the filters off, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't even think I had filters based on race on there, but I did have filters based on age, whether he had children. So, yeah.
Yeah.
That was a huge, he's come with a different set of circumstances that, like when I was, let's say 20, I wasn't expecting to marry into. But it's also something that I kind of grew up with, so it wasn't that foreign.
Yeah. So had you ever dated any other race before, or just Black?
Latino.
Oh, okay.
But that's it.
Okay.
Latino and Black, and that was my lane.
Yeah.
I mean, those were the only guys that would actually approach me. So
that sounds pretty Miami to me. So,
Mm-hmm.
What about you? What were your filters, Mr. Harris?
My filters were pretty broad because, again, I was much less of a catch at that point in my life than perhaps earlier. So I didn't have like really picky filters. But I was married previously also to a Black woman, so it was it wasn't a new relationship or a new set of circumstances to me,
But you had dated other races before being married previously. No, because you were married pretty young.
Yeah, I was. So like my first girlfriend, when I was, I want to say like 15 or whatever, was white, and then that was pretty much it. And then it was like I went after I divorced him when I was dating on EHarmony. I did have like a lot of first dates with different types of women and different races of women, and I think that at that stage in my life, like there was a couple of white women that I went out with just like once. There was a couple of Hispanic, but like white Hispanic, if you get what I'm saying.
Right.
Women. One of them I went out on like several dates with. This was like, over 2 or 3 months. And then that just didn't work out. And then I think that those, when you already have 2 mixed kids, it's already kind of it's difficult to get back into a white space, put it that way. It's difficult. It's almost like a white couple adopting and raising Black kids, I think, but it has its other sets of difficulties because you also have a Black biological mother in the picture and whatnot, and so it's a dynamic that's very different, And then also you got to consider like the legal constraints that I was under for a while,
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
So I know it's like
I was told that I can't go back. So
well, I did want to. So, what are your cultural backgrounds? Like, I know obviously you're Black and white, but what is back there that you know of?
It's interesting that you asked that because both of us just only recently did a 23andMe DNA test.
Yeah.
So when I sent in mine, I was kind of very anxious to see what my background was because I really had no clue. And so I found out that I'm predominantly Nigerian.
Okay.
And then there's some close family member that's, of course, further down the line that's Irish, who I have no idea who that person is, but it's like 12, they said it was like a 12% away or something like that. But I was pretty shocked, but it kind of explains for me why LaRue and Selah are so fair-skinned since that person is kind of so close generationally.
Mm-hmm. And why your dad has green eyes.
Yeah, my dad has green eyes.
Oh, wow.
Like all of his siblings, their eyes are like super light. It's crazy.
Yeah. But you didn't grow up with Nigerian culture?
No.
Okay.
All American culture.
Got it.
But you grew up in Homestead.
Yes.
That's the more interesting thing. Like, exactly. Right.
Yeah, I don't know anybody down there, so.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Like, who lives there? That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, what are the demographics of Homestead circa 1980?
Oh my goodness. So for me, the house that my parents purchased back then, roughly 1980, was in a predominantly white neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And when I started going to school and people found out where we lived, they were like, "Oh, y'all live in a rich neighborhood." Like, no. My parents like worked really, really hard. And then outside of that, like within the school system, it was very diverse. So I had friends of all different cultures, but then still almost in a sense uncomfortable with my own people, if I can say. So because I didn't have a lot of my own people around me. So once it came to like college, I kind of forced myself to be around Black people more so I could be more comfortable. It was kind of weird because I had family members that would say, oh, why do you talk white? Like, I don't understand what you mean.
Yeah.
And so those kinds of comments kind of made me feel uncomfortable to be around family, even though they are family.
Right.
But now things are much better as an adult with the family dynamic. So.
I've never considered like, one, I guess because I don't think about Homestead, but I've never considered like the dynamic in South Florida of growing up in like where you almost are surrounded by white people or to be that, I don't know, because I feel like even growing up in the church that we grew up in, like it's a really mixed church. I never felt like I was like surrounded by white people until I went to college. And then I was like, oh, there's a lot of white people in the world. Like you kind of forget growing up in South Florida. So that's an interesting experience. Like, do you think that helped in, I guess, getting acclimated to marrying Jeff?
In some senses, yes. Because even the church that I grew up in was predominantly white. So it's always, I guess, for me, been not necessarily, I guess, for other people. For me, it's been, I've not been uncomfortable being around white people. It's been the opposite, uncomfortable being around my own people. And I've had to grow into that, which is kind of weird to say. I totally get it.
Yeah.
But that was my experience.
Yeah.
And for you, Jeff, like, I feel like you grew up in North Miami, so.
I did. I grew up in North Miami. I went to North Miami Senior High, so I was the other most often too. And so you have to learn how to navigate that world and, you know, and whatnot. When I went to North Miami, there were probably more white kids there than now, but not like we were still like clearly the minority. And so, and it was good. It was a really good experience, but, you know, and I took the bus to school, most times, and home and whatnot. So, you know, I got the full experience, but this was, I think from the time, must've been when I was like 7 or so, like you know, around 1980, if you think about it, like, you know, the boat lift and, you know, a lot of things going on, like that's when the neighborhood started changing and my parents just didn't move out, you know, they stayed and the church changed and, you know, and we just kind of stayed there, but, you know.
Yeah.
So are you more comfortable in Black spaces or white spaces, or does it, because I think that's an interesting dynamic.
It's funny, you know, it's funny you mentioned it because I like what you said about going to college. I had that experience, not at college because I went to FIU, but when I took a job at a different private school, right? Different private Christian school than the one I had been at that you know of, you know, for so many years, where you guys graduated from. And that school is, you know, it's like, even if you look up the demographics on the, you know, the websites and whatnot, not the, you know, like great schools or whatever, like the circle is just like pretty solid. It's a little sliver of, you know, like that one white kid, like we know who the one white kid was, but it's, you know, and if you want to divide it up more culturally, like, yes, it's a lot of Haitian and a lot of Jamaican and then, you know, African-American. So there's some cultural or if you want to call it ethnic differences, but racially it's a Black school. And then I went to teach at this other school, which was, you know, financially a step up and other ways, but man, like the text I sent Ty on my first day of school when the kids were there was just like, there's so many white people here. Like it really feels weird. And especially because one of the things I've learned as white people is like there's a lot of, and I assume it's the same for every racial group or culture group or whatever, women and men, you know, there's a lot of in talk and there's a lot of inside jokes. And if you're not on the inside of those jokes, then it really positions you as an outsider. You feel, and you don't know how to react to that. So I've learned to like preface those kind of conversations with like a mini biography, you know, just to avoid people saying. I had a conversation with another person this week. We had listened to this discussion about as a faculty about Black Lives Matter and stuff like that. And the next day, he kind of pulled me aside. He's like, well, what did you think about all that? And you know, when somebody comes at you, and he's white, when somebody comes at you, you don't necessarily know how they're, you know, what angle they're coming with.
Right.
And so I got to preface the conversation. Well, you know, as you might know, you know, I'm in a interracial marriage and I've got mixed kids and whatnot. So that's the, you know, the place I'm coming from, just because I really don't want to put somebody in a position where they feel like they said something stupid. I really do want to have a conversation about it. But that kind of awkwardness can just shut it down when somebody feels like they've offended you or whatever. At least if they're going to offend me, they should do it on purpose. But the point is, like, white folks will say stuff to white folks, like, and say stuff to me. And I'm like, you know, the response I've learned besides giving them the mini bio is, you know, okay, so what have I said or done that would make you think that was okay with me to say that, you know?
Yeah. So, okay, speaking of awkward situations, or maybe not, what was it like bringing Jeff home? If that was like the first white man that you dated.
The first white and the first dude in a.
Okay, I don't know why you felt the need to put me on blast like that. Okay, so
should we talk about what your dad said to me?
No!
Like, yeah, I'm getting like Huxtable vibes from your family, like the way you.
Yes, yeah. Oh yeah, you're not off on that.
Yeah.
So
growing up, a lot of people thought my dad was like Cliff Huxtable.
Yeah, he
oh
thinks
my gosh, he's so funny.
He
blah,
does.
blah, blah, blah. You don't see him behind closed doors. He can be like quite rigid and strict.
Yeah, that was Cliff Huxtable. Did you watch the show?
Okay, yeah.
That's exactly how he was.
But it's not all fun and games and laughs and.
yeah.
But so I didn't necessarily introduce my parents to everyone I dated. So I was very selective with who I even told them about. So when I decided that things were getting pretty serious with Jeff, and I said, oh, well, you know, I want to bring him home so you guys can meet him. And my mom, being Jamaican, she's my second mom. My birth mom died in 1989 of breast cancer. So my second mom, who's Jamaican, so now I've got this whole Jamaican culture side of my family. She's just like, oh my goodness, we got to do a dinner and invite everybody over. It's like this huge thing.
Guess who's coming to dinner?
Yeah, exactly. No, literally.
And then it turns out that like she let me know that my brother felt some type of way about it, and finding out later that it was more about like, hey, it's not because he's white, but I bring women home too, but you don't go this far for them.
Oh.
But you bring everybody home.
Right.
So it's not as big of a deal.
It's like when the prodigal son's brother complains about, like, you never have a party for me, and
You're always here.
Yeah, but Tyann was dead, and now she's alive. Like, she, you know.
Wow.
Of course, we're gonna kill the fatted calf.
But now coming out on the other side of that, like my parents love him. They're really excited for us.
And likewise, yeah. Love all of them.
Every time we go home, he gets his favorite meals, and I get like, you're here? Oh, okay.
Yep.
And then on the other side with my brother, he's now married to a wonderful woman. And they are in a interracial relationship. So she's half Mexican and half white. So it's
nice.
Yeah.
So family is mixed and blended all around.
Yeah.
No, literally they are blended. Yeah, because she came in with kids too.
Yeah.
She
had 2 children prior to them getting married, and so now they have a third.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So now it's just their sister coming up. She got to find some white guy with a bunch of kids to
So what was your parents' reaction? Were they like, "Oh, okay, cool."
Again,
again with this, like it's no. We'll talk about that one maybe. There's no white women in Miami for you to marry, but
well, you actually did
I did get that question
from someone at church.
But yes, but not
his parents.
Not a family.
Yeah.
I think again, my parents had been prepped for it, and of course they watched me growing up. It wasn't going to be like a shock.
Yeah.
But the first time I got married, it was, I think, and they were supportive, but I think there were concerns less about the racial thing, but more about like, man, you're young and you're broke, like you really, like you're working, but working hard, working a couple jobs, and so it was those kind of questions. But I think my folks, put it this way, my parents are kind of mixed in their own ways. My mom is Jewish, and my dad is like just regular white people, like really white people. And so from like Kansas, so like kind of like Midwestern white people. I've been doing the ancestry.com to like try and trace, and that's another thing, like very high pressure for white folks. Like when you start doing the ancestry.com, when you start getting into like the mid 1800s, it's like, okay, like every time you click that button, like what are we gonna find now? But it's all like Kansas and Indiana, just like Midwest. And so like they had cultural differences for like a couple of reasons. Like my mom is not just Jewish, but she was like straight New York Jew. And my dad is like straight up, Midwest white people. And so I think if I had to define it, they are definitely more progressive than a lot of white folks, but they also, had some ways to go, right? I think they're the kind of white folks that are definitely want to think of themselves as embracing all races. And, I don't think I've ever heard them say like Nazi color, because the way that we grew up, because again, my mom grew up in New York and definitely knows what it is to be the other, definitely knows what it is, like the short backstory is her grandmother was, kind of like she had her kids older, like around, late 30s, and was in Germany in 1912 when Hitler started his campaign and got busted and went and got sent to jail. And 1923, not 1912, 1923. And so she, like, and her husband put her son and daughter on a boat and sent them to America. Just like, we can't necessarily all go, but you go. But the thing she told them in coming to America is like, you're going to go to America. It's not Germany. It's not Nazi and whatever, but they don't necessarily love Jewish, and so unless you're around Jews, don't tell anybody that you're Jewish. When you go to school, you keep that on the low. Don't tell anybody you're Jewish that you don't have to. And so then that trickled down through like generations. And then that was my grandmother who came to New York and with that kind of undercover thing, and she passed that on to my mom. But by the time my mom had kids, she didn't have to like keep it a secret. She wasn't religiously Jewish. She had converted to Christianity, so she goes to a Christian church. She has nothing but, like white Christian friends or Black Christian friends or Hispanic Christian friends. And so they might kind of know that she's Jewish, but don't know any of the backstory. But as far as her kids, like, I think I was like, 20 or so before I really like knew that, and weird because we had, Jewish foods in the house coming up. And yeah, I know we had like matzah in the house. We had other stuff in the house like that and I don't know, I just thought that was regular. I just thought that like people had that, you know. Yeah. I like the first time I went to somebody's house and saw like saltine crackers instead of matzo crackers. Like, oh my gosh, what is that? Where did you get those from? They're like little.
They're so small.
They're small. They're like little cracker cupcakes. What do you do with those? But yeah. So their reaction to like a mixed marriage was not offensive. They weren't against it or anything like that, you know. If anything, I think they're the kind of white folks that think of themselves as progressive, and probably like a lot of us still have work to do, still maybe like some stereotypes that bounce around up there or something like that. And not even necessarily always negative stereotypes. You know, there's positive stereotypes that it can also be kind of, you know, problematic.
Yeah.
My sister adopted 4 kids from Zambia.
And she's also an interracial.
And she's also an interracial because her husband is Japanese, so it's just all the way around.
Wow.
Yeah, her husband is half Japanese, so like the like, and he I you know, I don't speak for him, but he's the put it this way, their 2 biological kids are definitely very aware of their Japanese heritage, especially through their grandfather and whatnot. And but she adopted 4 Zambian kids, two first, and then a few years later 2 more. So on one of those adoption trips, after they, this was the second one, they already had 2 Zambian kids, and so it was a whole family thing, and they took my mom with them to Zambia to help out and to, you know, it's also nice to go to Zambia, but then because of the politics there, they ended up having to stay for a long time. They ended up having to stay for months. And so the 2 things I think that specifically my mom got out of it was seeing Africa from more of a residential point of view than a tourist point of view, you know, which I don't even have that. Like, it would be interesting. I'd love to go, but she, you know, like, I mean, it's not like going for a week and taking the guided tours, you know. Yeah. You know, it's living in the village, and you're like, she was there, I want to say, for like 3 or 4 months.
Yeah, she was there a while.
Yeah, and then had to fly back with the younger kids when it looked like things were really going badly, like they were going to take a while, because, you know, politics and bribes and stuff like that. My sister was insistent on not paying bribes to make things happen faster. Because her position is, and I agree with her, that the more people that pay bribes, the more that happens, and the more it's normalized, you know, so that's just part of the system. And if more people would just stand up to it, then, you know, the judges and other officials, they couldn't get away with it. I mean, they're literally like holding your children hostage for bribes, right? So she not only had the experience of being in Africa for an extended period of time, but then coming home and taking care of two Black children, you know, in a city. And I think there's something that happens to, or at least it clearly happened to my mom, when it's one thing to have Black grandchildren in another town. You know what I mean? It's one thing to have Black grandchildren come stay with you in your town. You know what I mean? But when you are charged with their care, and you have to take them to school, and you have to take them to the library, and you have to take them to, you know, to McDonald's or whatever, and you are the one that's there when they get funny looks, and you are the one that's there when things are said to them and stuff like that, then you either have to put up or shut up. And so, to her credit, she put up, and you know, she had to deal with some of the same things that my sister has to deal with as a mother of Black kids. Wow. So that was definitely, and that was all before I married Ty. So
wow,
that's a long answer.
And where does she live? Like, what state does she?
She's in Kansas now. So she was born in New York. So she was like a legit New Yorker. When you see movies that have like, yeah, that portray like that old New York Jewish lady, that is definitely, that's my mom. Yeah, yes. for real.
Absolutely.
And so, and then because of the situation with her family in New York, her mom also died at the same age that Ty's mom died, or she was the same age as Ty was when her own mother died. And so because of the circumstances there, and I guess not getting along, it was a complicated thing. Her father basically had her live with her aunt and uncle, who were Orthodox Jews, like for real. And she had just converted to Christianity. So she moved down after a while, I think when she was like 17 or so, she moved down to Miami. So she got that experience. And especially at a time, again, when Miami was really becoming the Miami that we know, you know, and love. And then to, you know, at retirement age, to kind of move off to Kansas, where it's a lot of white folks and a very different attitude towards race, you know, not even to say that everybody's like racist there, although, you know, there is that vein running through it.
We
but
got a lot of looks.
We got a lot of looks. Like, imagine, like, you know, we only did this one time, and I think, again, it was a learning experience for my folks, because they had been begging us, like, we want you to come to Coyson. And I went up there, you know, multiple times to see my grandmother, because that's where my dad is from, this little tiny town in Kansas. I mean, they literally have like 2 streetlights. They have 2 restaurants in town, you know, like there's a Dairy Queen and there's a Subway. So if you don't want if you want McDonald's, you're driving an hour to get it, right? So, and I've been up there multiple times, like, you know, I remember what it was like, and it's a lot of white folks. But when like it was our entire family. What was LaRue born then? No.
Yeah.
So LaRue was a baby. Okay. So
she was 18 months.
So I'm coming up with our mixed marriage and 3 mixed kids. My sister is coming up. Did she have all 6 kids then?
No.
She had 5.
She had 5.
Yeah.
Yes.
So she's coming up with her and her half Japanese husband and 4 African kids and her 1 biological daughter.
No, Aaron must have been born because he's older than LaRue. So 6 kids.
So 6 kids.
Wow.
Of all kinds of, and then we, you know, there's just not much to do there. So we're all up in the like community gym playing basketball and organizing games and stuff like that. And it looks like a, you know, like a community outreach program or something like that. Like, you know, it looks like a legit, like there's so many kids out there. It looks like a legit like summer camp program.
Yeah.
You know?
There's a lot of us.
Yeah.
Wow. That's crazy. So how did your 2 mixed kids react to bringing Ty home?
Man, you know,
I mean, obviously it's like, you know, another woman, but like also maybe she's not the same culture as like
she's not. Yes,
right. That's right.
Right.
Not the same culture as their mom.
Right, because their mom is Jamaican. So there's that. And I think they're put it this way. It's and I'd be willing to bet this is common to blended families, but there was it like literally a roller coaster. It's I think especially my daughter, my big daughter, she on meeting Ty, I think I saw like an instant connection, you know, and an instant kind of, you know, like girl talk and stuff like that. But then when it's like, oh, he's marrying this woman and then I gotta live with her and stuff like that.
Once I came in and started trying to set rules, it was like all bets are off. Like
not even just rules, not rules like, hey, you got to do this, but like boundaries, even just like, you know, like yeah. It was
like,
rough.
you need to wash dishes.
Yeah.
But teenager
normal
too.
kid stuff.
Mixed.
Yeah.
Normal teenager stuff and normal like blended family type stuff.
Yeah.
And so we actually just talked about this last night because the kids were over last
night.
And one thing they said, I don't remember how we got on this conversation, but one thing they said is because one thing we were very careful about is having like family therapy, family counseling, you know, because the kids had honestly been through, like that's another factor of blended families that adds they had been through the ringer, you know. And so I had been taking them to counseling and whatnot. So they at least had a toolkit and they had like a language, you know, and to how to speak these things, but then you add this other element to it. And so I think within a year of us getting married, we were back in family counseling.
Right after Kansas.
Yeah, right after Kansas. Oh. It's all Kansas' fault. Yeah, really.
Right after Kansas, we started counseling. But we were just saying last night how much that therapist has helped us as a family,
Mhm.
right? And the kids were saying the same thing. I shouldn't call them kids because they're adults now.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're grown.
But they were basically saying the same thing last night, that they feel that those counseling sessions have helped us tremendously
Mhm.
as a family. It was really difficult. It was really rocky early on. And I feel like we've grown a lot closer.
Yeah.
I hate to put this on LaRue, but I think LaRue has been, without intention, almost in a sense, came like a glue
Yeah.
for us.
Because she's the only one in the house that everybody is blood related to.
And now
Selah too. But yeah, they're the only one in that. So you.
But it also puts a lot of pressure on that one child,
Right.
unintentionally.
It pressure. I would say, it's like her loyalties are tested, if you know what I'm saying, right? Yeah, and but she. What's that?
I said that's why you have two.
No.
Right.
Are you with the kids or with the parents? You gotta pick one.
Yeah.
And then she's super like fair skinned, so she's, you know, it kind of goes like from the oldest to the youngest. There's like, you know, Miles is the one that looks the most, you know, mixed. If you imagine like a light skinned Donald Glover, that's what.
Good example.
Yeah, and then Nina is like fair skin, like, you know, she could pass if she wanted to, and she's got wavy, straightish hair, but dark features. And then LaRue has the like kinky hair, you know, but lighter in color and
really light eyes
and fair skin. And then Selah has Nina's texture. She's got like wavy, straightish hair with like a slight curl to it, but light in color
and blue eyes
and super blue eyes and super fair skin. Like she gets flushed, you know,
easily.
like I do, in the sun and whatever.
So if either LaRue or Selah wanted to pass, it wouldn't take very much.
And that's the thing. I think, like, speaking of marriage or family counseling, that you've got to get somebody who specializes in that thing, who knows what they're talking about. So for us, it was important to get a counselor who is not only rooted in Christianity, because that's like the basis that we want to hear counseling from, but also who understands blended families, you know, who has a good track record with that. But at the same time, you know, if your family concerns are more racial because it's a mixed family, then you need somebody who understands those things. You know, you need somebody who has either training in those things or experience with them. And I don't think it's stupid to, like, for instance, if the problems that my kids were having were racial and not just like, you know, standard blended stuff, I don't think it would be stupid to have family counseling. There's just some things that they're not going to work out on their own. And as much as I hate to say it, there's a lot of things that you can go to your pastor about, but this is not necessarily one of them. You know, your pastor's training is not necessarily, it could be, you know, family counseling, but it's not necessarily. And so in those situations, I think you can go to your pastor for prayer. You can go to your pastor for some advice. But if you want actual like healing in that particular area, you need the professional. You know, you don't go to your pastor for medical advice. And it's just, you know, it's a similar kind of thing. It takes and I'm not even just taking it. It's saying it takes a specialty. Like you have to have a counseling degree. Like you have to have a counseling degree and also know a lot about mixed families and also know a lot about blended families. There was a point at which, like, if you can even imagine, there was a point at which in counseling, like we had us, our kids, their mom, you know what I mean, and the baby all in the same counseling. And it was like, I have never been in a more awkward situation in my life.
Was necessary.
It was necessary.
So necessary.
Yeah.
And that's not, and I don't want to put too much details on it, but when we say it's necessary, it's not necessarily like, oh, it was somebody needed to get checked or something like that.
No.
But it was,
there was some serious emotional turmoil going on that needed to be addressed before it became a bigger issue.
Right. And sometimes you just need that mediator.
Absolutely.
Especially a skilled mediator.
A skilled, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely believe like therapy amongst like evangelicals is necessary. Like you can't pray everything away. I mean, prayer works, but I think it's fair to advocate for the balance of, or the necessity of outside help, definitely with the biblical perspective. But I think it's super important to advocate for that, because I think sometimes it's still kind of looked down upon. And consider, weakness or maybe lack of faith. I don't know, but I just feel like it's not as advocated probably as it should be. So I think it's good to hear from a Christian couple how important therapy was.
For sure.
It is, and like even how you say like you can't pray some things away. Like one thing, especially a trained counselor who is also Christian, a trained mental health expert who is also Christian, can even teach you how to pray. Like, there's, you might not even know how to pray about a particular thing. You might not like, if you picture a mixed marriage or something like that, a prayer like, well, I just want us to get along, or I want my parents to get along with her, or something like that. That might be far too simplistic. It might not even be the right thing. The prayer might be more like, I want to look for opportunities to uphold my wife's dignity, regardless of who's in the room, even if it means I gotta back talk to my folks, even if it means, which is not the situation that we, but you understand what I'm saying. Like a good mental health expert might even teach you, what prayers are going to be more effective than other prayers, and how to think about them in a way that's more effective.
Like now, raising kids, because it's your two older kids grew up in a different time for sure.
Yes.
Where I know identity was probably always going to be an issue. Anytime you have make sure that identity is going to be an issue. But now, growing up or raising mixed kids, how has that been? Because I know identity and stuff like that is huge right now.
Yeah. Okay, so recently after George Floyd was murdered, LaRue might come in the room and just see me bawling my eyes out. And I'm thinking about Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor and all these other countless number of people that have been murdered or assaulted in some various fashion. And we had not spoken to her about race at that point. So,
or at least not about racism, like,
Yeah.
How old is she?
She's 7.
Okay.
Yeah.
She'll be 8 in December. And so she kept asking, Mommy, why are you crying? Why are you crying? And I wouldn't give her too much detail. And then it got to the point where we were like, we've got to sit down and talk to her, because I keep avoiding this issue, trying to preserve some type of innocence, but who knows what she may come encounter with, whether it's school or in whatever situation, because I'm the one, when I take LaRue or Selah out, I'm the one that gets the question like, oh, that's your baby? For real? You have? Yes, she is my child. And I get that a lot.
You guys look alike, so that's weird.
Yeah, but a lot of people
really
can't
funny.
see past the color.
Right.
Yeah.
Everybody says, or not everybody, but a lot of people will say that she looks just like me, and she does not. She doesn't look anything. She has no features for me. It like literally just complexion, and that's it. She doesn't have my face shape. She doesn't have my nose or my eye color. Yes, but like that's it.
Yeah. So, and Selah even more so. But and Selah we get the question about Selah. Oh, where did you adopt her from?
Yeah.
You're kidding me? So anyway, to get back to the story with LaRue, we decided we were going to sit down and talk to her about race. And we explained that there are people out there that don't like people maybe because they're Black, or don't like people because they're white. And we kind of had to explain what the George Floyd situation was, and that there's protests going on out there, and that things like this have been happening for a number of years. And it's disheartening to know that the people that are responsible are not held accountable.
Yeah.
So when later on in the conversation, I asked her, so when you look in the mirror, do you see a white person or a Black person? And her response was, I see a white person. And I was like, okay, I can completely understand that because your skin is very fair.
Yeah.
But you are both. You are Black and you are white. You come from both mommy and daddy.
So she knew that you were Black and
yes,
she
recognizes that I am Black and that he is white. However, since her complexion is more like his, she identifies more as white.
Right.
And we don't use euphemisms like that in the house. We don't, like it just people are Black or they're white or they're, mixed or they're brown or whatever. And so like she, as little as she is, like she'll just like, if you like which, if she'll ask about somebody, she's like, oh, the Black one or the white one or the. And so we like tried to like let her know that that's okay, but but
I get that. It's like, what crayon would I use to draw myself, and she probably wouldn't pick a brown crayon.
Right.
The funny thing is she does.
She does.
So funny. She totally does. She'll draw a picture of the two of us together and we're both the same shade in her photo.
I don't feel like
she drew a picture of she and I together. That's an interesting question.
That's interesting. We should have her
talk about some mental health, some counseling.
We should totally
have her draw a picture.
Yeah. She's probably like, I don't feel like looking for another color. I'm just
right. Pretty much. She's just lazy.
And your two older kids, they grew up mostly in Black spaces, at least for
Yes.
So now, considering the school that she goes to, I think she goes to teach that. How do you find that balance now to like incorporate both spaces, because she'll probably be around more white people at that time.
I with the big kids, I didn't have to be very intentional about that.
It's interesting though, because when I came on the scene, a lot of people at school kept saying to Nina, oh, you're the white girl.
Right. But at her school, she was the white girl. Like it was the whitest of the girls at that school. So despite the fact that she was mixed, she was more white than anybody else, because it wasn't even like predominantly Black. It was like, again, like 99% Black with that sliver. Maybe she was the white girl on that. Maybe she was the little strip on the pie chart at that time. It depends when they made it. But yeah, and she had like a similar, because the school that I went to, which was it was a great school, but just culturally very different, and the racial diversity was very different. They were actually more diverse because they did have, Black and Hispanic and Asian and whatnot, but also a lot of white folks. And so my son was there for 1 year, right? So unfortunately, like he left his school from, babyhood and then in a senior year had to graduate from somewhere else. But she went there as a freshman. So she had all of her high school there, and it's only a high school. So when she comes in, I think it was a real interesting moment in her life. I wish she was here to talk about it, but so she's coming in as a freshman where everybody else is new. Like some of them know each other because they went to the same schools, in 8th grade or whatever. But by and large, like everybody is new. Everybody is new. Mm-hmm. And she left her school being the white girl, right? Where everybody was like, oh, you're especially because her mom was never on campus very much. It was me that they saw. So, she's the white girl and I'm the white dad. And then at this school, like it's a similar situation where I'm the white dad and everybody, pretty quickly realizes she's my daughter. But since her mom is never around there, I mean, not never, but rarely, put it that way, it's a whole different thing. And now being the white girl got a whole different connotation. Being the white girl at an all Black school is a very different life than being a white girl at a predominantly white school. And now, like, I don't have to fight that battle anymore and whatnot. But like I said earlier, white folks say stuff to white folks sometimes. And she was trying to pass and she was trying to play that undercover role and just maybe not let anybody know that she was mixed. And I think it was really funny, like you could visually see the change. I remember it was, I guess it was the accumulation of several conversations that she had where she felt uncomfortable and awkward and felt like she had to stand up for her mom, you know, where they were saying stuff either about Black folks that was quite racist or just ignorant, if you get the difference. And she finally had to make a stand. And when you've been at a school, this was still in her freshman year, but when you've been at a school for like 4 or 5 months and people know you as a white girl and there's nothing else that they would have to doubt that. When you say, you know, I don't like this talk, my mom is Black, then they're like, okay, well, what kind of Black? And then she takes out a picture. It's like, okay, well, yeah. that is a Black woman. Like, I think it was that week. I used to tease her about it. I think it was that week she started wearing her hair up in bandanas. Like she started wearing like. Oh
my goodness, she did that for so long. Like walking around looking like Pop.
Yeah, with the bandana tied around her head, and I teased her about it. You know, what was that?
I said, so she turned into the Black girl at school now.
She did, and it was a real interesting switch, and she started seeking out the Black girls on campus and some of the Hispanic girls.
She really wanted to like do things differently for Black History Month.
Yep.
So she wanted to like put poster boards and anything she could to kind of like provide knowledge for the people at her school. It was really
and I
cool
think
to watch.
It really was. It was like she flipped a switch and she went from like white to Black, you know, just like that. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like that's something that she's got to work out for herself. Mm-hmm. But I think that part of it is also coming from the other side. Like there's been a bunch of times, especially with Nina in particular, there's been a bunch of times when I've been with her and I can see in somebody's eyes, like they'll ask that question, you know, or whatever, or it'll come up, you know, oh, her mom is Black, and you can like see how the needle just swings completely to the other side in their brain. Like this child in front of them just went from being a white girl completely to being a Black girl, just like magic, like that. And she had years of coming up like that. So when she got in a situation where people didn't know her and she tried to play that role, she felt like she had to make a choice. And as much as we tell mixed kids like, well, you're both, but you know, and it's one thing to say I embrace, you know, both heritages, or you know, I'm all of these things. You know, when you walk out the door, when you go to school or when you go to work or something like that, they are going to make you choose. Yeah. At the very least, they are going to put you in a category.
They want to put you in a box.
They're going to put you in a box. And if anything, it's like she became very culturally Black, you know, where that was kind of her assertion of her identity. And it's part of who she is. She's 100% free to do that. Like when Selah comes up, she's the last one. And again, very fair skin. She's got straight hair. She presents even whiter than Nina does, because Nina at least has dark features, dark hair, dark eyes. And but Selah, she's going to have to make a choice someday. She's going to be in that room where it's going to come up. And if people don't know, you know, they're going to say stupid things. They're going to say ignorant things. Yeah. I feel like that's, when it comes to mixed relationships or mixed marriages, that's the number one reason that I have always heard why not to do it, or why there's something wrong with it, or why it's bad, because the kids, because whatever. And it's always struck me, number one, you never hear that argument from good folks. You never hear that argument from well-meaning, loving people who actually mean you well. You always hear that from people who are either racist or prejudiced, however you want to look at it, whether, you know, one side or the other. And it always occurs to me that saying that is just a way of saying that if you bring mixed children into the world, you know I'm going to abuse them and terrorize them. So why would you do that to them? Like, you know, you
could just stop being mean.
You could just stop being a racist jerk. You could also do that, but, you know.
Yeah.
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 Okay, so you guys brought up like cultural things, right? As far as like Nina was concerned, but as far as your relationship was concerned, how did you guys kind of maneuver through stuff like that? Like maybe you wearing a head wrap, or to bed, or you getting sunburns and things like that. Like how did you?
Yeah, I get sunburns.
Like what did you guys already know some of these things, or did some of that need to be explained?
Did you ever imagine living in a world, Ty, where you would have to put sunblock on your kids before they go to the beach? Yeah. Did that ever occur to you?
Like I do have to like kind of remind myself to do that for the kids, or to like pack it for him, because that's never something that I've thought about growing up, because I would need to be out in the sun for an extremely long time in order for it to have the same effect as it does for him or the children.
It's about 5 or 10 minutes for us.
Yeah, I remember I went to a Christian camp, and before they let everyone go to the lake, they lined everybody up to give them sunscreen. Yeah. And like we're all walking through the line at our church. It's pretty much just all black kids. There's only like 4 or 5 of us, and there's hundreds of kids there. And we get to the front of the line, and they're like, "What do we do?" And I was like, "I guess sure, just so I don't stick out." But like, yeah.
No, yeah, God forbid you should stand out.
Right.
It's like, so yeah, I never even considered. I don't even know what aisle that's in at Target.
Yeah. Or even just like you guys mentioned different hair textures in the house. Like how are you, maneuvering through that?
Oh my God. Okay, so Lula is actually getting her hair done right now. I literally dropped her off before starting the podcast because, hair in general, whatever texture it is a struggle for me. So when I got a text from a family friend that says, "Oh, would you mind if I did LaRue's hair?" Have at it. What time do you want me to bring her over?
Right.
I will even give you extra money. Like, I'm happy to do it because number one, she's tender-headed and she doesn't like to sit for too long, but she wants it like super long, and like, okay, you have too many demands on my limited abilities. So
that's honestly the one thing on her that says that says like that she's black, like that she can't, like if she straightens her hair, that's one thing, but her natural hair is super kinky. Yeah. Lighter in color, but texture is like tight curls. And so like when I was a single dad for a while, like I had to do Nina's hair, but it's put it this way, it's like regular hair, like my hair, so it's not that hard. Unless it gets wet and then it kind of, curls up, retracts a little bit. But, but then when it came to LaRue, like I could do, that straighter texture of hair. Yeah, I had to do that. I had to learn how to do it. When it comes to LaRue's hair,
no.
Just rock the throw.
And I'm sure I could learn how to do it. My sister has, had to learn how to do, girls' hair, and their hair is,
and she braids it, and she does. Jeanette does way more than what I can do. So my hat is off to Jeanette. Like, work it.
Yeah.
But yeah, to get back to your question, I think that there were easy things for transition for us because our interests are very similarly aligned as far as like music, food, church. Like, we're pretty much in tune, in sync with each other. It's pretty much the same.
Yeah.
As far as like going to bed and head wraps, yeah, it happens. And for me, I don't tie them on right, so they end up coming off. So
I mean, listeners can't see it, but like Ty's hair has been chopped for a while. So yeah, I guess you could put a head wrap on it, but it's
you don't have to.
Yeah, because even as a black man, like I remember when I got married, I had to get used to it. Like I'm in bed and I just hear a spray bottle going off. I'm like,
yeah. It used to be when she had hair, it was.
I had longer hair when we first got together.
Oh yeah.
And
you went natural for a while too.
Yeah. It's been a lot easier. He actually cut my hair this morning. So look,
That's crazy.
it's a lot easier this way, especially when it got to a point where I was doing LaRue's hair on the weekend, and it's like an all day thing. And now we've got Sayla coming up too. If I have, I'm really grateful that her hair seems like it's going to be a lot easier to manage.
Yeah.
I tell you, this is because again, I grew up in North Miami, so like my first exposure to that, you could decide whether to edit this story out later, but so there was a girl that went to North Miami with me, and her name was Michelle. I can't remember her last name, but everybody called her. She's not listening, but everybody called her a little bit because she was super short. Like if she was 5 foot, she had to be wearing heels or something. She was super short, and so and we were friendly. I can't remember if we had a class together or we just talked in the halls or whatever. But I did think she was super pretty. But she had like short hair for a while, kind of like salt and pepper cut, like, you know what I mean, back in the day, right? Yes, right. And then one day she came to school and she had a braided rope like all the way down to her waist, which admittedly is not that far, but still striking, right? Yeah. And so I had to ask, I was like, no, how did your hair grow so fast? And I know, and she was like also super smart and very sarcastic. So she told me, I said, how did you get your hair to grow so fast? Like it was like super short last week. And she said, well, because of all, she said my hair, well, our hair, because of all the oils in it, it stretches. So you can literally, like those dolls, you can just pull it out to any length. And as long as you braid it down, it'll stay there. And I was like, what?
How long did you believe that for?
Until I got to the next, I believe that until I got to the next class.
Okay.
Yeah, and I said to my friend, did you see Lil Bit's hair? And they were like, yeah. And it's like, it's a nice weave. And I was like, is that what they call it when they pull it out? And they were like, when they what? They pull out the hair? And I was like, they don't
do that.
That's funny.
That's funny.
So like when I got married, I felt like when I met Jackie's in-laws or just her family in general, like you kind of have to prove yourself. Like, you feel like racially you have to prove yourself, hey, I'm one of the good ones for both of you, because I feel like that could work both ways.
I think that, I'll tell you this, I think that Ty's family was very accepting, but there were a lot of questions. I think there would have been more questions if they had not just been so overjoyed that there was some kind of dude coming to the house.
Oh boy.
You still want me to tell that story?
You clearly want to
I
tell
do want to
it.
tell
Oh my goodness.
So again, you can edit this out if you want to. So
we're keeping on.
This is the same weekend, you understand? Like I'm staying in a house, separate bedrooms, same weekend that I'm meeting them for the first time. And her dad is big. Her dad is very tall, and like he's not. Well, he's actually kind of muscular. Like he
used to work out.
He used to work out. So he's like 70 now, and he's still got some of that, muscle memory. But he's also tall. Like he's got to be at least 6 inches taller than me.
He's 6'1".
He's 6'1". Okay, so that's so what, like a few inches taller than me anyway. But he asked me to come upstairs. He plays pool, right? And he's got his own pool room and stuff like that. And so, and I know what this is like. This is going to be the talk, and I'm all ready for I'm ready for those questions. I'm ready for hey, listen, I know a lot of white folks and whatever, or I'm ready for hey, if you ever hurt my daughter or whatever. And we did get into some of those conversations, but before we even got there, he got emotionally quiet. You know what I'm talking about? Where he's trying to gather himself. And I was like, wow, this is, and I didn't know if it was the racial thing or whatever. And he just kind of puts his hand on my shoulder and he says, I didn't think it was ever gonna happen. And repeated it. I didn't think it was ever gonna happen. And I looked up to see if he was joking. He was dead serious. And then we had like the talk. But I can tell you this, one thing I learned about that weekend, about that experience, and something that I've had to learn like throughout in a similar way, is that just because you know one, subset of people, or you feel comfortable in that space, doesn't mean that you know everybody who looks like them. So for instance, in this case, just because like I was very comfortable with Jamaican people and Caribbean people and dark-skinned people in that cultural setting, doesn't mean that you know African-American people, doesn't mean that you know, like it really is a different culture. And so he's married to a Jamaican woman, right? And so like Ty said, there's that kind of element of the family, but by and large, it's an African-American family. And that is, it's different. Like, when I consider like having grown up around a lot of Black folks, it was around a lot of Caribbean folks, which is not necessarily the same thing, definitely, some African-Americans, but it ain't the same thing, And I was actually listening to that Truth Table podcast today, the newer one with Lecrae, and he was talking about something else. But there is this idea of like having a pass, or having a invitation to the barbecue and whatnot. And that's a very dangerous. It's a very dangerous notion on both sides, because number one, when you give somebody a pass or you give somebody an invitation to the barbecue, you need to be ready to yank it at some time too. Like it can't be a lifetime pass. Like I think we've seen that in politics recently, where you extend somebody a pass and you try to say, oh, well, they used to say that about Clinton. They used to say that about, and not to bash him or whatever, but they used to say that about Bill Clinton, like, oh, he was the first Black president or whatever. And then, within about 15 years, they had to yank that card, And the same thing is true on the other hand, like accepting that card or starting to think of yourself as having a pass or whatever means that you've stopped doing whatever kind of work, mentally or socially or spiritually or to work reconciliation. You've given yourself a pass. Like I don't have to do that work. And the more that you put yourself in that space where you give yourself a pass, and the less that you're actually really working on whether you do understand or whatnot, the more separated I think you get. I think some of the people who are the most ignorant about race and whatnot are the people who have given themselves a pass. And that's like, if you think about it, that's the commonest comeback to like, well, I'm not racist. And it starts with, it's super easy to say, well, I can't be racist. My wife is Black. And again, having taught at a mostly Black school, teaching mostly Black kids, it's very easy. And I would have people come to my defense and say, no, like it would be a dust up. And some, a parent would be saying, well, you're treating my kid like this because you're racist or whatnot, or you don't like them because they're Black or whatever. And I have to be very careful about not, pulling that card and not letting other people pull that card for me. And in fact, just trying not to say anything about it at all. Not saying, well, my wife is Black, because for two reasons. Number one, because I have to stand by my own behaviors and my own words and my own thoughts and my own attitudes. And those don't change just because of who I'm married to. And could still be very problematic. And I need to continue to think about it. I need to continue to, do that kind of work, as everybody I think does. But then secondly, when you hear people to like criticize the other side, when you hear people say stuff like, well, Trump can't be racist. If he's racist, he's the only, racist white person to ever date a Black woman. Like, that's actually pretty common. That's actually kind of a thing, and one of the questions that you had put on the list was the idea of fetishizing. And, like that is a real concern. I can imagine it could be a real concern for Ty. I don't think she'd speak for herself there, but I can imagine that would be a real concern. But I think that's the second danger is like, number one, it's too easy to give yourself a pass because of whatever, because you adopted a black child, or because you have a black spouse, or because, and then you see people how they like go from there all the way down. It's like a never-ending source of defense against, you know, the charge of prejudice or whatever. So, you know, it goes from like my wife is like, oh, my best friend is black, or I had some black friends in high school, to like, yeah, my mail carrier is black, you know, and I always wave at him when he drops off the mail, right? Like, you know, I think it's very dangerous to accept that past. It's probably more dangerous to accept the past than it is to give it. I think that sometimes, and we kind of know this experientially, the most ignorant people about race are the ones who have given themselves a pass. What's your view on the fetishization of black women near time? Have you ever felt fetishized? Not by me or anybody else? If it was me, then you could just pretend it was like somebody else.
I mean, you're the only white guy.
This one guy, I know!
Who else can it be?
No, I don't think I've ever felt like I've been fetishized. That's never been an issue for me. I don't think it was ever a concern of mine with Jeff. I think coming into the relationship with him, I was less concerned about race and more concerned about children, because I had grown up in a blended family. So that dynamic was a bit more concerning for me than the racial dynamic. I guess because I had grown up around a lot of white people, I was already comfortable being around white people. Never dating a white man, like, it's okay, but men are men, right? Or at least that in my head, that's what I was thinking. So.
So what about before we actually met, like from the very beginning, when you're on eHarmony and it's a white guy hitting you up? Okay, so even then, was it like, I wonder if he's just trying to?
Yeah. No, but that's kind of, I guess, part of my upbringing. My dad and my parents, in a sense, they were never ones to be like, oh, well, you should date this particular person, or you should date that particular person. I did have family that would say to me, you should never marry a Jamaican. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, how are you going to put everybody in this one box? Or another family member.
But like Jamaican relatives saying you should never.
Yes, right. Yes.
Jamaican women saying you should never marry a Jamaican.
Yeah. Or another family member is saying, oh, if I had to do it all over again, I would never marry a black man, I would marry a white man. I don't that for me has never been a thing. Like I've never understood putting people in boxes.
Yeah.
Have you ever been accused of fetishizing, Mr. Jeff? Sorry.
Mr. Jeff?
Yeah,
Mr. Jeff.
And you know what? I get it. Because from going back a long way, and I think that it's okay to have a type. I think that it's okay to even have a type that crosses, a racial line or something like that. I think if one guy can be like, well, I'm really into blondes or something like that, and that's okay, or I'm really into this shape, I'm really into big women, or I'm really into thin women or something like that, then if that's okay, then this can't be much different. And you can fetishize you can fetishize blondes, you can fetishize big women, you can, but I think that the difference is that when you fetishize someone, it's not just like I have a type or I find this particular thing attractive, or this is kind of, the people I grew up around or whatever. It objectifies the person. It reduces them to that element, to the point that that's all I want. And it makes humans interchangeable. In this case, like it makes women interchangeable. So I don't need Ty, I just need a black woman, right? And you find, I think what happens in those relationships, once the woman or man, I guess, right? But I think it's more often women. Once she starts asserting her individuality, not even like, I think number one, two things happen. Once she starts asserting her individuality, not even necessarily getting, mean or changing her personality, but just like asserting that like I like things that you might not think I should like. You know what I mean? Like I like Bon Jovi and you probably think that black girls don't, right? And now all of a sudden I'm not black enough for you or whatever. Or once she starts asserting, you know, her independence or something like that, and the like fetish brain is forced to confront the idea that this is not a doll, this is not an object, this is a person I'm dealing with here, then they don't want that anymore. Like I want the doll, I want the object, I want it to shut up and do what I expect it to do, you know? And I think the other thing is, especially when it comes to blackness, especially when it comes to white guys fetishizing black women. So like, for instance, white guys will fetishize Asian women, right? But somehow the more Asian they are, the more they like it. The more like Japanese they speak, the more, you know, culturally Asian they are, or you know, whether it's Indian or whatever, the more they hyped about that, like because that's what they want. Now, the more individuality they show, the less they might be interested.
Right.
But when it comes to white men fetishizing black women, one thing I've seen is that what they want is racial blackness, but not cultural blackness necessarily, right? Or not an awareness of blackness. Like they want somebody who's into hip hop, and they'll be the first ones to say, well, I'm blacker than you or whatever, because I know this or something like that. But then when it starts having conversations about, like, you know, the Black Lives Matter or George Floyd, then it gets really uncomfortable, you know? Because as much as they want to claim to have a pass or whatnot, that thing is still coming from a racist core, and it rises up when it gets challenged or when it gets named or when it gets called out. And it can be pretty ugly. I think that you might remember there was that video that woman posted, I want to say 3 or 4 years ago. It was way before this George Floyd thing. It was after Trump, though, had taken office. And it was a black girl with a white boyfriend, and he was going off with the racial slurs
I do remember
and whatnot. She was recording him. And I'm telling you, like that kind of thing is real, and it can flip like that real quickly.
Yeah.
And if we're being honest, like, America has a long history of that exact relationship, you know? And I think that's the careful thing. I would say, like, my advice to any black woman in a relationship like that, right? And I suppose it might work, you know, a white man in a relationship with a white woman in a relationship with a black man. I suppose it might work that way, but I have less experience with that. But either way, like, before you sign anything or commit to anything, or even, you know, like, give certain things away, I would say, like, you need to be asking those kind of questions and putting somebody through their paces and see, like, is this person looking at me, or is this a fetish? Are they trying to, like, is this something on their bucket list that they're trying to check off or something like that?
Yeah. Do you guys have, like, a lot of other couples that are in interracial relationships?
Yeah, almost exclusively, yeah.
And so, like, are they also Black women, white men, or is it mostly Black? Oh.
Except for my brother-in-law. I'm trying to think of. No, I take it back. Back.
When you look at, like, the friend aspect,
yes,
it's varying different.
Yeah, you're right.
But as far as the family aspect, it's mostly Black women with white men.
Interesting. Because at least in my family, it's mainly like Black men and then
or
other. Yeah, it could be white, Hispanic, whatever. Like. So
in your experience, do you think some of those are, like, how many of those are fetishes and how many of those are, another question would be, I hit something. I'm not supposed to be asking the question.
I don't.
Doc made that very clear from the outset. Like, he's asking.
That I was on video.
Yeah. No, like, every time my family has something, he's like, "Wow, your family's really mixed. Like, there's a lot of different." Yeah. So, I don't know. I don't think it's fetishes. At least
there's only one. There's only one.
Well, I could think of one cousin who is obviously Black, and then his wife is white. But, like, before that, he never dated a white girl. Like, it was only Black women. And then where I have, like, another male family member who is, like, almost only dates Hispanic women. And I don't know if that's because it's Miami or, I mean,
Right.
he kind of told me his experience of why he dates only Hispanic women, but I don't think it's a fetish per se.
Insert Hispanic woman here. That's just how I feel. But
that's his opinion, but I don't see it like that. I don't know.
Okay, it's a type thing. Maybe because I don't. It's hard to like the sometimes I don't know all his intimate thoughts and feelings on that.
Yeah.
So it could just be type. It's real specific.
Yeah.
See, but for you knowing that, the stakes are very low. You know what I mean? But if you're actually, if for the woman in that relationship, like that is a crucial piece of information. And I'm not talking about even just before marriage, but like before you go on 2 or 3 dates with somebody, because you know how relationships can be. Like you go on 2 or 3 dates with somebody, and then, you know, like a movie, cut to 6 years later, and it's like, oh, I'm still in this thing. Like, how did all that time pass? Yeah. And so I think like it's so much easier I honestly, I think when I was dating this second time around after divorce and after being like a single parent for, what was it, like 3 or 4 years, I was definitely conscious that things would be easier in some ways if I married a Black woman. It would be easier to have mixed kids with a Black stepmom, because I think I was definitely underestimating how difficult step parenting would be, or how difficult, and as hypocritical as it sounds, like I did know enough to say, like I would, and again, very hypocritical, this is gonna make me sound bad, but I did know enough to say I would definitely rather not date someone who has kids, like, which is because I have, you know, kids.
Yeah.
It's really hypocritical to say, but it was coming from a place like I at least I understood that much about how difficult step parenting and blended families could be. But I definitely understood it would be easier to do all of this with a Black woman. Not that I was exclusively looking at that, but that seems to be how it goes. And I do think there's something different between a type, like having a type, and you know, and having a fetish.
Right.
And it comes down to whether you're embracing the individuality of this person and the totality of the person. But another question would be, can a relationship ever shift from being like, can a relationship that starts off about fetish ever be anything more than that, or ever develop anything? Or if I'm a woman, or if I'm a man who's looking at this potential partner, and I start to realize, I don't think this person wants to hear anything I have to say. I don't think they want to know me. You know, they just want to talk about black all the time. You know, if that's the case, then is there any redeeming that or turning it around, or are you better just like to say, yeah, I don't think this is a fit?
Right.
Yeah. So I'll distinguish. I don't think the person is a fit. I think it's a type.
No.
I don't
on
know.
The record.
Yeah, I don't know who's listening, but I think it's a type.
Right.
So I'll make it clear.
Okay. Well, I kind of only have one last question. I don't know if you have.
No, we're good.
How do you guys, or I guess being an interracial couple, does that shape the way you guys move through different spaces? Like deciding what church to go to, or what school to put your kids in, things like that, or even buying a home. Like how does that shape those decisions?
Yeah, all 3 of those things, like especially you mentioned church and where to buy a home. And so like, for instance, it was really hard for Ty to get me to move out of North Miami, because I grew up there. I really, I know I love that city and whatnot. You know, like when I would, when I go to the grocery store, like, those are the same streets, same grocery stores. Like when I was a kid, I was, riding my skateboard to, or riding my bike to, or whatever. And parks and stuff like that I grew up playing in. And so it was hard to get me out of there. But at the same time, as a church to take our family to, our church, like you said, is diverse in a lot of ways, but definitely more Black than anything else. If Black includes, Caribbean and African American and other types, but and our neighborhood too. Like when we were looking for a home to move into, in both cases, a home, or if we should ever find another church, it seems like it would be much easier for our family to exist in a more Black space than in a more white space. If somebody has to be the other, if somebody has to be the minority in the picture, then I think it's a lot easier for me to be that than it is for Ty. Because if I'm the only white person in the room, right? It can be awkward, it can be weird, you know what I mean? It can be socially dangerous in the sense that, like, either I or somebody else might say the wrong things or something like that, and then you have to like mend relationships. But for Ty, it can be actually dangerous, like physically dangerous. It can be emotionally dangerous. It can be a lot of other things. And for the kids too. and like Jacques said earlier, like we have to be more intentional about raising these kids in Black spaces, or having them comfortable in Black spaces, because their school isn't necessarily going to give them that. And so as far as school goes, the kids generally go to school where I work. So as I'm making a choice about their schooling, I'm also making a choice about my career, And so the other school that I was mentioning, where it's like, oh my gosh, there's so many white folks here. Like, I wouldn't have gone there and I wouldn't have stayed there if I didn't think, and there's like, anytime that you have a real diverse group, you're going to have a diversity of thought also, and some of those thoughts are going to be prejudiced, right? But the question is, what is the administration's policy on that? What is the track record of dealing with it? And who gets supported and who gets a platform? And so I felt comfortable, like Ty said, like within a few months of being at this school, Nina was all of a sudden like pulling kids together, especially some of these girls, like pulling, and we're going to do something for like, we didn't have a thing up for Black History Month last year. We're going to do a whole wall this year and stuff like that. And their response was like, here's a budget, here's some materials, do whatever you want to do. And one thing I liked about it was they're like, we're not going to do it for you, right? You're going to do it, right? If the Black kids want to do like a Black Lives Matter wall, go do it, right? We're not going to tell you can't do it. We're not going to tear it down, but we're also not going to do it for you. Like, you need to do this, right? Yeah. And so, and I think that's very similar to the school where I'm at now, and maybe even more so, where they're willing to hear those voices. They're willing to elevate those voices. When a problem comes up, they definitely deal with it, But if somebody has to be in that awkward space where they're the other, that should be me. I'm more comfortable with it. There's less emotional and spiritual and even physical danger for me to navigate those spaces. And at the end of the day, like, maybe that's what I have had to do. Like I said, the alternative is like my grandmother, like, don't tell anybody you're Jewish. Just pass. Just hide it. Just, if anybody asks, lie. And I get where she was coming from. Like, for her, it was literally life or death.
Right.
But it doesn't have to be that way here.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. I think that's it. I think we got a good amount of stuff in.
Yeah.
Before we leave, though, do you want to plug anything?
I do have the blog. It's mixedandblended.com. So that's my funny play on words for that. I haven't posted to it for a couple of months, for basically the summer, because I was working on other writing projects. But mixedandblended.com, there's some good stuff on there about, if I do say so myself, about navigating mixed family spaces and blended family spaces. If you go back far enough, I started the blog when I had a lot of free time and like lonely nights, and it was called the what was it called? Oh,
Sleepless.
The sleep deprived single father blog. And so so up at night just writing stuff, and then once I got married, I changed the name of it, thank God. But but if you want, anybody who wants to check that out, you can check them out, comment, repost them, or whatever. That's all I'm working on. When I get some stuff published, I'll let you know. We can plug that too.
We'll put the link in the description.
Nice.
Did you read the blog before committing your life?
Oh, did she read the blog before she signed on? That's a good question. That is a good question, Jackie. So how much material did you, how much research
I
did
totally
you do?
cyber stalked him.
Good.
Like I needed to do my due diligence.
Yeah.
Like, are you who you say you are?
Yeah.
And
No, elaborate on that. That's it.
okay, so I became almost kind of like mini CSI, meaning like, okay, you say that you've been divorced 3 years. Let me look that up. Clerk of courts. You say
She
that
contacted the clerk of courts. She wanted to put eyes on that divorce decree.
I needed to be sure.
And you know what? I can't even knock it. Like, I can't even, like, for my part, I wasn't doing all that kind of research. I was just happy to be somewhere. But, you know?
Yeah.
But
I Googled his name. I looked up the blog post. So I went all the way back to the beginning of the post and read every single post up until
smart.
current.
yeah.
That's smart.
I'm convinced all the wives have like a secret group chat and they discuss these things and like different research topics and this is fun. That's Jackie.
All of my friends come to me like, hey, look this person up. I just, I'm gonna go on a date with them. I'm like, okay. It's so fun. But yeah.
It is
I'm glad you did
It's
that.
fun.
It is fun. Because it's like, oh no, they told you they worked here. Actually, they work.
Yes.
Right.
It's like detective work. It's
Yeah.
Exactly like and their political party is, and I'm like, you gotta stop.
Yep. Not even just political party, but like, man, like the stuff that you can get into on the internet these days.
Yeah.
Like, if you could get a hold of somebody's history, like, viewing history, like, man, how telling and embarrassing that would be, and whatnot. What was there anything that you found that gave you pause, Ty? Was there anything that was like, man, I'm gonna have to ask about this one?
No.
I mean, at least everything checked out.
Yeah.
You made
Not
it
everything.
I had to be honest, like, because I had a lot of first dates, and so like as soon as it just, like I said, I was not exactly a hot commodity back then, with 2 kids. So and 2 big kids, not even like 2 little cute kids, like 2, like like preteen in their feelings kids.
Right.
And so
9 and 12.
9 and 12.
Prime.
Holy smokes. And then you get the question, like when you say, so you have kids, then you can see like their eyes start, looking around and stuff like that. And then the next question is, how often do you see them? Like, how often do I see them? Well, like on the weekends and after work and in the morning when I wake up and sometimes when I'm trying to go to the bathroom. Yeah.
Did you know most of that before you went on the first date, or did you learn it on the first date?
I knew he had children. I didn't know the dynamic as far as how often they were at home or with him versus their mom. I think that most of everything we either chatted about online, and then he kind of slyly asked for my phone number, and then we kind of chatted about a lot of things over the phone before having that first date.
Yeah. It was like a good 3 weeks on between chat and phone, and then it was summertime, and I had a vacation plan with the kids, and we had just started talking on the phone, really, I think, right?
Yeah. And
we had just started talking on the phone. I think I had just got her phone number too, and I was out of town with the kids.
Yep.
And I like, we had literally just settled into the hotel, me and the kids, for this vacation. And I had just gotten a phone number, and I'm like, if I don't call, I can't call her a week from now, because that's really bad form. But I also can't be like on the phone with some new, woman while I'm. And so I called her up from the hotel after I got the kids settled. I put them on a movie or something like that, and I went out on the balcony of the hotel. And I talked to her for a little bit, and I tried to be honest with her. I said, listen, I'm on vacation with the kids. I'm going to be out of town. Like, I can't call you for the rest of the week. And I promise I'm not lying. I'm not going to jail or something like that. I'm not on vacation with the wife or something like that. but like I'm just not gonna. I'm gonna be out of touch. But I want to set a plan with you. Like when I come back, I wanna see you. And so then she had a week of no contact to also do all the detective work and all the looking up of stuff. Yeah.
Yep.
Smart woman. But yeah, so we'll link the
But
blog.
then I still missed out on Sade.
On Sade?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, that's right.
He had Sade tickets, and both of us are huge fans.
Yes.
And
that's right.
But I can't be that mad because he took Nina instead. So.
I took Nina, and I thought about taking Ty, but it's like that would have been our first date, number one, right? And I had a lot of first dates that were whack, like a lot of first dates. Right. And I know Nina, like Nina might not be the best person to go to a concert with, but I understand, I know Nina, right? And so she'll have a good time and we'll do all right and make it like a daddy-daughter date. But my thought was like, I thought about asking her, was like, if this woman messes up Sade for me, like it's not gonna come around for another 15 years. If this woman messes up Sade for me, I'll never be able to forgive her. That'll be it.
That's true.
So what was the first date then?
Our first date was at Cheesecake Factory, and he tells me we're not allowed to order dessert. I'm like, who goes to Cheesecake Factory and you can't order dessert?
No, I said I'm not ordering. I said you could order dessert, but I'm not having.
I'm gonna eat this cheesecake by myself.
In my mind, I sat there thinking like, oh my goodness, who am I getting myself involved with? Because I really like sweets. Like, you don't eat sweets? Like, I don't understand.
No, that was the point. Like,
but
really
that
like
was
sweets.
Yeah, he likes a little too much, and he tries to preserve it for the weekend and not during.
I dream about like what I'm gonna have on Saturday. Like, you know what I mean? I'm gonna get this ice cream, and I'm gonna,
I'm always interested in people's first dates, and especially because you guys are older, like just that whole process is always interesting.
We went to a Cheesecake Factory that was basically just down the street from the apartment that I lived in at the time. So he drove pretty far to actually get there, but
heck of far, like far to the point where
like, Hollywood to Coconut Grove,
right?
Oh, yes, that's far.
Yeah, it's far.
Oh, come on.
No, that's far.
To the point where, like, 3/4 of the way, I'm like, I don't know, man. What kind of woman?
You might have to stop.
I was already pretty well hooked, but I was like starting to,
Yeah.
And then I only ate like half of my dinner and ended up giving the other half to like a homeless guy.
Oh, okay.
I think that was what did it, because we passed by this homeless guy, and he was asking. And we were both like, we don't have anything for you. And then we got, I want to say like 20 paces away. And she kind of looked at me. She's like, I feel really bad. And I was like, why? It's like, I mean, I literally have like a whole thing of food here. And I'm right. And I was like, do you want to give it to him? And she was like, I kind of do. And then we turn around and, I mean, things like that could be sketchy. And so I very gallantly was like, you know what? Stay right here on the street. Like, I'm going to walk back and give it to the man and whatever,
Gallantly and paces. He used that.
Yes.
That's an English teacher for you. I think we can end on that.
Yes.
All right, guys. Thanks.
Thank you, guys.
All right.
Take care.
All right. So for this episode's Business Spotlight, I had actually heard about this business through a podcast, but I don't remember what podcast. And they were talking about wine, and they brought up Black Girl Wine. And I was like, clearly this is Black owned, because that would be problematic. So I was like, okay, I'm going to test it out. I mean, I was already on the road, so I was like, I'm just going to stop by Total Wine and see if they have some. And I was not really in a Black part of town. So I was like, I don't know, they might not.
I mean, carry on Jemima and Uncle Ben, they'll probably have it.
That's not Black owned, but
that's the point.
Anyway, I stopped in and they were fully stocked on Black Girl Wine. And so this is a wine that was created by the McBride sisters. And I bought for us to try the red blend, and it was really good. And I also bought the Riesling, but we haven't tried it yet. And so it was one of those nights we had dinner, and then I was like,
One of Jackie little bougie snacks.
Yeah, I was like, let's make it cute, you know? So then we had
Bougie, what was it? Just
foie
cute.
gras next to it, which is like duck liver, and little toast that we had with the wine. Did you like it?
It was okay. The wine was good. The wine was fine.
Okay.
The bougie snack was,
It's not a bougie snack.
It
It's
is
like
a
a little
very bougie
appetizer.
snack. It is a very bougie snack. It's like upscale tuna. It's because it's like
It's not even tuna.
It's the consistency.
Even the
of like,
consistency is not tuna.
Nah, it is. It's kind of because it's like meat that's been, I don't know how to
Rounded
describe
up.
it. Yeah, so it's kind of.
But it's smooth. It's like
definitely.
It's
smooth.
like the texture of cream cheese, not.
Nah, it's more.
But just
than
not as thick.
Like, think about if you've ever had, I guess like fish dip. That's what it kind of felt like.
Okay. It's not even fish.
But it's meat, like
Comparing.
it's the meat pate. Like that's what they call it.
There you go, pate. I never really said pate in my life. So
I mean, I'm just cultured like that, so I understand the finer things in life. That's a bougie snack.
Well, it paired really well with the wine.
It paired really well.
It paired well with the wine, so you guys should definitely try it out. Go to Total Wine, or I guess order it from their website if you want.
Get you some foie gras.
Yeah, get you like
little hors
d'oeuvres to go with it.
Think.
Well, I guess I'd have to tell them the brand of that, and I don't remember it. But it was really good.
Yeah, but try it.
Yeah.
But yeah. Aside from that, I think this was a really good episode. I hope y'all enjoyed it.
Yes.
So yeah, thank y'all for listening.
Yeah.
All right. See you.
Bye.
When I pull up on you, then I might swerve, ayy. Double off deuce, ayy. That just might work, ayy. When I pull up on you, then I might swerve, ayy. Double off deuce, ayy. That just might work, ayy. That just might work. That just might work.